The people of Bondi are still struggling to understand how their hallowed ground became the scene of a bloody atrocity.
I don't think there's any doubt that if we had our time again, of course we would do things differently.
What were the intelligence gaps that led to the actions of Sajid Akram and his son Naveed Akram? And what did police do in response to what would become Australia's worst terror attack in years?
We're all wise in hindsight, but the police don't have crystal balls. So it's important to say, right, what was known at the time, and then in review, were there chances to have acted earlier, more decisively, or was it beyond all of us?
More details emerged this week about the two wounded police officers. 22-year-old probationary constable Jack Hibbert, just 4 months into the job, and 25-year-old constable Scott Dyson, 18 months in the force. Police have confirmed that both were in the park where hundreds gathered for Hanukkah celebrations, and both moved towards the gunman when the first shots were fired.
I just think such brave young souls. Who does that? And it's only the New South Wales Police.
But questions remain about whether there were enough police at the Hanukkah festival, the Police Commissioner Mal Lanyon facing a heated media conference on Tuesday. How many police were at the festival?
I've said previously that they received taskings to go to the Bondi Beach, so there were police moving through there at all times.
How many at the festival?
I can't tell you at any particular time. As I said, they received taskings.
The Premier stepping in to defend the police.
There are 2 officers in critical care in New South Wales hospitals at the moment. They weren't shot in the back as they were running away, they were shot in the front. I'm sorry to be graphic about it, but if there's any suggestion that New South Wales Police didn't live up to their responsibilities to the people of this state, it should be rejected because it's not consistent with the facts.
They are open questions though. They are
No,
open.
I'm sorry, but I do have a responsibility.
They are quite simple questions.
Was it a failure of staffing?
The Premier later confirmed there were at least 3 police officers at the park at the time, but police are yet to release a full timeline of events. Reports have emerged that New South Wales Police interviewed the son Naveed Akram after an ASIO assessment in 2019. The son was reportedly placed on a known entity management list.
But it's not a legal instrument. It's not like being under a search warrant or a prohibition notice like a child protection register, which precludes things happening under law. This is an intelligence bucket where names come in, information comes in, they're attached, and it sits in, it's always live.
Former commander of the organised crime squad, Rob Critchlow, says police would have done a thorough risk assessment of the Jewish festival with the organisers.
To have 3 members there for that event alone is quite a substantial commitment. That's a lot of public resources standing around the park watching people have fun on a Sunday. So it wasn't disregarded, it wasn't ignored.
The Jewish community uses its own professional security guards, as well as a specialist-led volunteer organisation known as the Community Security Group.
Very professional members, their leadership are often ex-Israeli military and have great working relationships with both the counter-terrorism command and the frontline commanders. So they're not blind. There was obviously a decision made that the footprint that was there was sufficient, that the overlays of the CSG and the police was sufficient for what was in front of them at the time. And again, the review will tell us whether that's right or wrong. But from what we can see, it doesn't seem unreasonable.
CSG operates around Australia and is now on heightened alert. It's a necessary part of life, according to the Jewish community.
You can walk into a church or a non-denominational facility of any type anywhere in this country. You will not be challenged. If the door is unlocked, you can just open it and walk in. Many occasions in our community, it's very different. And we unfortunately have to conduct our lives Jewishly behind these higher walls and greater protections simply because of the attacks that we have seen around the world. And sadly, what we've just seen in Bondi is proof again of the risk that we face.
The president of the community's peak body says there were no warning signs before the festival.
We've always been aware of the risk of attacks, including violent attacks, and that's why we've taken the protections that we necessarily have. There was no advance warning that the Hanukkah festival by the sea at Bondi Beach carried greater risk than any other event that we've recently held. We took the precautions that we needed to take.
In the first moments of the attack, there was mass panic. Another former detective superintendent, Brett Henderson, who worked in Bondi, says the first responders would have faced a confusing and chaotic scene.
You've got a number of people running away from danger, obviously traumatised, obviously trying to protect loved ones. You're a police officer trying to get there. It's okay to say that, oh, you've got lights and sirens, so everyone should get out of your road, but they don't.
He says officers would have also had a tough time identifying the source of the gunshots.
And of course, you're right. There's a number of high-rise buildings, but they're high-rise enough around that area that another active shooter could be at that location and could cause issues. So no doubt, running into a scene like that, you would be scoping all the way as to what could be here.
Precisely what happened that night will become clearer in time.
I think it's really important to remain focused on the fact these two men made choices. They made choices to act, to prepare and act in the way they did, and the blame sits with them squarely. But obviously, the state and federal bodies need to look at themselves and what they did.
Today, the Prime Minister announced sweeping reforms to crack down on hate speech and radicalisation. The changes will see hate preachers targeted and grant the Home Affairs Minister new powers to reject or cancel visas. The Prime Minister also responded to critics who say he failed to act forcefully enough on anti-Semitism.
Do you think part of the healing is offering a statement of contrition, whether it's a broader one from society or your own, would move some of those people, help some of those people?
Look, of course more could have always been done. Governments aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. We have engaged in a constructive way. We've done, including, there wasn't a special envoy on anti-Semitism before this government came to office. I, of course, acknowledge that more could have been done, and I accept my responsibility for the part in that as Prime Minister of Australia.
7:30's political editor Jacob Grieber joins me now. Jacob, that was a very significant moment today with the Prime Minister answering your question. We're not used to hearing Anthony Albanese make significant concessions like that. Can you walk me through how that unfolded and what you see as the significance of that moment?
Look, I think you're right about that. It was during a press conference today where he announced this new suite of measures that they're looking to develop, really to tackle the anti-Semitism issue head on. There's been criticism during the week that he was more focused on gun law reform. The narrative took hold that this was at the expense of looking at the anti-Semitism issue. But the opportunity arose for him in this press conference to address, I guess, the question more broadly of a contrition or taking some share of the blame. Now, no one's suggesting, I don't think fair-mindedly, that he's to blame for those terrible events. They were caused by extremists motivated by an ideology, but he is confronting this underlying criticism that he hasn't done enough in the past. And I think this is quite a big deal from the Prime Minister to acknowledge essentially that those concerns that the Jewish community have been talking about for quite some time are valid. And I think it was an opportunity for him to send that message to that community in a way that tries to sidestep some of the more aggressive politics that we've seen over the last 2 days.
Now, it was a significant press conference in lots of ways. We had Tony Burke, Home Affairs Minister, the AFP there, Jason Clare talking about education, and of course the anti-Semitism envoy, Gillian Segal. So there has been a lot of criticism that they did not treat her report properly. Why has he chosen this moment to essentially say we're going to endorse the whole thing?
He needs a circuit breaker. He needs to change the narrative in some quarters that he's not in control. The opposition has really been able to get in front of the cameras down at Bondi, at the pavilion there, much more than he has. And he needs to show that he is thinking about how to solve this problem going forward. There's not much you can do in the here and now about what's occurred, but you can do things in a proactive way, and that's what they're looking to do. She is his hand-picked envoy. He needs to be able to have her by his side. She was there. I think that's a very important point. And they are looking now at a body of work that will include taking on some of these preachers who use hateful language. They need to find new definitions in the law. They've been able to skirt a lot of that up until now. And that's a big deal. It does mean that as a country we are shifting the very delicate balance around freedom of speech, other entitlements and rights. But as a country, we seem to be moving to a point where we're saying that this cannot stand the way it has up until now. The Prime Minister's grabbed onto that. They'll now have to come up with legislation that can make that work in reality.
Shifting the delicate balance is a very fine way of putting that, Jacob. Politically, what happens next? We are obviously fresh. We are only days now since this tragedy. We are in the teeth of Christmas. Does this settle down politically for the time being?
I suspect not. I think the anger in the community is still very raw. It's visceral. So I think the pressure will remain on the Prime Minister. The question will be, how quickly does he bring Parliament back? There are those, the opposition in particular, saying he should do it immediately and definitely before Christmas. My understanding, there's quite a reluctance to do that because there's a fear that doing so would actually not be a unifying moment. It would be a very rancorous day in Parliament. There would be a lot of finger pointing. The opposition started in those very early hours on Sunday saying it wanted to work in a bipartisan way. That mood has changed dramatically in the last few days. There is direct blame on the Prime Minister. That creates a very antagonistic political situation. And I think there'd be a concern in the government going into Christmas that you end up, instead of having Parliament come together as a statement of national unity and solidarity for the Jewish community, you actually have something, you know, potentially quite ugly, to be frank. And I think they want to give it time. They also need time, Sarah, to actually put this legislation together to make sure they get that balance right.
Jacob, today, but for all of your analysis since you joined the programme, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much indeed.
All the best for the season. Thank you, Sarah.